Joining me now, Gianni Kovaccevic,
Bingo.
CEO of Coperbank. Copper is near and dear to my heart. Electrification of the world. You know a lot about it. I've seen you on the internet. You're extremely passionate. Look at this. My electrician drives a Porsche.
Yeah, looks good.
Who's the author? Gianni Kovaccevic. There you go.
I love the copper foil. The Achilles heel of the global economy.
I'm going to melt this down and no. So why the delay in the price of copper? I'm not saying there's a delay. I'm saying it looked like we thought we were going to see copper move maybe a year ago, right?
Yeah, until June of last year, and that's when Donald Trump put in that first tariff to China.
Okay.
And
sure.
you have to look at this pragmatically, Ed. Let us pretend for a moment, and I like to make this colorful for your viewers.
Sure,
we're going to talk about junior mining and all these things.
Love the enthusiasm. Love the.
But let's pretend for a moment that our family makes copper cable. We're in the business of fabricating and manufacturing copper cable, and we've done that for a long time. When have we ever liked high copper prices? Never. Copper piping, anything that's fabricated out of copper, typically they want a margin, they make a product, and the lower that input price is, the better things are. What they hate is a spike in that input material, which is why it's in their best interest to smooth these prices out.
Right.
Who's the price setter? You can't even count them. There's hundreds of thousands of people that manufacture things made out of copper.
Right.
The price setter is the speculator. And there's an unholy alliance that takes place between these guys because the speculator, they're making a margin, they're clipping coupons. And the trade has been short the global economy, recession's coming, short China. And one of those things, amongst a myriad of different mechanisms that they have, has been to go negative on copper. And we saw that. June of 2018, copper was pushing $3.30 a pound 3 times. Trade tariff comes in, copper goes to $2.55 a pound. And who celebrated the most? Everyone making copper cable, everyone making copper piping. Fantastic. Not only did many of these people stop buying copper, if they had excess inventory because things were going to get negative, I will suggest to you some of them might have sold some of their inventory, exacerbate the problem. But what happens when you actually run out of copper, or if they resolve this trade tension?
Right.
That unholy alliance, that breaks down. Because all of a sudden, these guys, they say, you know what, we're long. They take the slack out of the system, and now they say, and we're not selling to you anymore. And now you have all these thousands of fabricators that, logically speaking, are going to have to pay more for that product. In this case, we're talking about copper. That is coming, as my friend Robert Freeland frequently says, and I'll plagiarize it, coming to a theater near you. Not years down the road, this is coming. They're going to resolve this trade tension, and even if they don't, we get back to business as usual. You know, the world's not going to stop because, as you and I both know, and we talked about before taping, electrification. The whole world is going towards this trend.
Automobiles, everything, right? And you know, the low-hanging fruit has been mined. You hear now more and more the costs of building a mine, and it's changing on the go. You know, they're saying, well, we were going to start this thing, but now it's not going to happen for a few more years. Seems as though we're in a state of deficit now, aren't we? Like,
we have the last 2 years been in deficit.
And it's only going to get exacerbated.
Well, it is. And how do you grade a copper deposit? There's many ways, but of course the big one, the poster child, is grade. Grades have fallen in half in the past 15 years.
So what's a good grade now when you talk about, is it 0.5%?
It used to be 1% copper. And then 20 years ago, if you had a deposit that was 0.5, that's 0.5% copper.
Right.
You didn't even care about it, you threw it away.
Right.
That is the grade. The future grade of the copper mining industry is going to be not even 0.5, in fact it's 0.4, 0.35. And those projects, particularly if they're not in areas that have a ton of copper mining infrastructure, power, water, workforce, all these kind of things, you need to pay for that. And not to get into too much copper mining engineering, but a ton of that rock has to be economic, and it's not. You don't have to waste your money doing a feasibility study. At today's copper price, $2.65 a pound, it is not economic because the grade of these 0.5 and 0.4% copper deposits, that rock is only worth $20, $30. Not a money.
You know, 3 or 4 days ago, and maybe this is a bad question, but 3 or 4 days ago, it looked like copper was touching 249. And then China came up with some number and said, you know, things aren't as bad as economic number, and oil shot up $2 and copper shot up, and it's moved up 10 or 15 cents. But we're still going we're just sort of jostling for position here, aren't we? Like,
Yeah.
but there's going to be a day we're going to wake up and copper's going to be up 20, 30 cents 3 or 4 days in a row.
I think that will happen, and it's going to be because of probably one big event or a series of events. Usually what tips the scales in the copper business is because one of those 10 or 15 large copper mines has an act of God or something. It shuts down one day to the next. Oops. All of a sudden, your what already is a tight market becomes imbalanced.
Right.
Everyone panics, and you have to go and find copper metal somewhere else. Or it's going to be some relief on this trade tariff thing, and everyone realizes the world is not going into a calamity. Even if you have a recession, recessions don't last for 14 years. They last for 2 quarters.
They're sharp.
Or
They're
3
fast.
quarters. Look what happened in 09, people.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if that happened and it was a V and we came out of it, you know,
Oh, that was a 100-year flood, right? Like
the world will go on.
The world blinked back then when Bear Stearns and those companies went under.
Yeah. But even look at a different scenario. Let's say that we do go into a calamity, and it's a long, because all the gold bug guys say that they built too much debt and all this zero rate interest and everything that's going on in the world. That's not the point. I gave you guys a quote that's really important. You have to focus on, you're looking at it, but you're not looking at it the right way. We have today, as we speak, only 19% of final energy is electrification. It's going to 50% in the next about 30 years. And the enabler of that is going to be copper. The CAGR growth rate from copper, even with all else can happen, trade war, whatever you want, we are actually decarbonizing the energy mix. It's happening. People, it may be starting slow because they're still rolling out the models of cars and we're still building the generation capacity to not be coal, but to be wind and solar or gas peaker powers to augment wind and solar, because they want to utilize more electrical transportation. And this, in the course of 3 and 5 and 10 years, big line items. And it's all going to be run by copper. You need to focus at that. That's what's really taking place. Don't lose any sleep at night because of the demand of copper. Win, lose, or draw, there will be demand growth on a CAGR basis, and we are not building copper mines. This is already happening, and it's becoming like a pincer. You don't have to wait years. In my view, you have to wait quarters.
Yeah. I know, and I think I hope I didn't say this on the show already, but the head of Codelco was saying that 3 of their mines need 280, 290, and that's they're right in the middle of, like, they produce it better than anybody else, right?
Best in the world, largest copper production entity in the world. It's effectively the Chilean government. The world's largest publicly listed copper company is Freeport-McMoRan, but Codelco is the world's largest copper company. They need to invest in excess of $30 billion for the same copper yield, because grades are falling lower. Remember, if we're mining 30 million tons a year to have a certain yield, in the future, grade falls. Now we have to mine 40 million tons for the same copper metal yield.
If they were still using, if they still had, we don't have copper pennies here anymore, but we used to have copper pennies, what would be the amount of copper in a penny? Like, do you have any idea what it'd be worth today?
It used to be copper.
Yeah,
then
it used to be.
Then it became an alloy,
Yeah, yes.
and now we've abandoned the penny altogether.
Right.
Americans still have their pennies. So that's small potatoes. Copper, 75% of all the copper that's fabricated every single day goes into something to conduct,
energy.
Transfer, utilize electrical energy.
Now, what
and a
about,
little bit for piping, air conditioning, and other things, roofing and what have you.
You know how they used to put the coins in the water in Rome and kill bacteria?
Yeah.
So they say now hospitals should be built with copper alloy in the door handles and on all the counters. So there's because everything that comes into contact with copper, 99% of all bacteria.
Antibacterial. And that's conclusive. There have been many studies.
Yeah.
For those that understand
And
this
silver
trend,
too, right?
Silver's fantastic too. But for copper, people were wondering, should it be a pure copper plate on the hospital, or the arms of the bed and the door handle, or could we just spray a coating of something that's got colloidal copper in it? No, it's got to be copper. They've done the studies. If you look at all the different bacteria, you can't cheat there. You got to use real copper, and that's where we're going. That is something that works, and you're going to see hospitals around the world, and that's a whole new demand driver for copper. In fact, for the United Nations sustainability, initiatives, there's 17 of them. Copper plays a starring role in 16 of 17.
Wow. No, it looks like we're coming into the age of copper in earnest. To talk about your company.
Yeah, Coperbank is something that many of your listeners would be aware of.
Yeah.
And we are now just past Labor Day. We worked very hard all summer, and we've got a new presentation which you should download. If you've ever invested in a copper company in your life, we've got 10 slides of comparables. The who's who how much pounds they have, what's their G&A, what's their value, what are the transactions that happened in the last 10 years on a per pound in the ground basis. We've got 10 different slides that show you where Coperbank sits. Now, we don't just tell people our stock is cheap. We have been consolidating copper development projects for the last 3 years. We have a portfolio of these projects. Market cap is $15 million. And yet again, for our property payments this year, 2 weeks ago, I invested $480,000 at a premium, no warrant, to pay for all of our property payments, even though we've got one of the lowest G&A to establish pounds, $15 million market cap.
Where are your properties? Are they? I don't know the answer, so I'm asking to know where are they? What countries?
We've always had 3 criteria, and we still have 3 criteria. We're in jurisdictions. Here's our threshold. They have to be in places where our children can work. That's our risk tolerance. They have to be projects that have had a lot of money spent on them. This is a risky business. We understand these projects are not perfect. They may have warts on them, but we have to have at least what's there. Is there a resource? Is there an economic study? So hundreds of millions of dollars would have to be spent on things that we look at, or tens of millions of dollars in our case. And number 3, and this is very important, Ed, I can't eat my shares. I want to monetize them. We don't have golden parachutes. I'm working very hard to monetize the value of my projects.
I understand.
They have to be projects that we believe in our sphere of influence in a normalized market. Will someone want to partner with me or do commerce on these projects so they, the more mature company, can take it to final development? Those are the 3 criteria. We are still looking. This is a buyer's market. It's a bear market. There are things that we are doing advanced due diligence on. It has to make sense, it has to be accretive, and we are like carpenters. We measure 7 times, we cut once. We're very careful.
Sure.
If it's going to be a share issuance, it's either going to be to maintain our portfolio or it has to be highly accretive to the existing shareholder. And I'm the 2nd largest shareholder of the company.
Sure. So where are you? Are you in basically North America?
Where are the best mining jurisdictions in the world? We are in Arizona. It was, for 100 years, Arizona was the largest copper producing jurisdiction in the world until Chile surpassed it. We're in Pinal County, and we're in that famous copper corridor where the 2 major trends, the geology trends of Arizona, intersect. That's at Copper Creek. All of our workers, if it was a mine, would go home at the end of the day. Can't underline how important that is. So that's Arizona. We're in Elko County, Nevada, on private property. So between the Kennecott Bingham Canyon mine and all the famous gold mines of Nevada, we're right in the middle.
Anything in California?
We have nothing in California. So that's Elko County, Nevada, just off the freeway. We've got electricity, we've got crew, we've got infrastructure. That's where that project's located. And our other projects are located on the Alaska Peninsula. That's San Diego Bay and Pyramid. And that would be effectively a 2-hour flight from Anchorage, Alaska, directly on Tidewater. On Christmas Day, do you know what the temperature is there? It's very far south. It's like Prince Rupert on a parallel.
Probably 14 degrees.
5. Very windy, but it's 5 degrees.
It's wind chill.
This is not deep winter like you think of Alaska. This is green.
It's some funny
and
temperature
this is all year
fluctuations.
deep tidewater.
Yeah.
And the project is only 4 kilometers from deep tidewater.
Yeah.
Very important when you look at the development of a project like that.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I do. I think people that have looked at my book or maybe haven't quite finished it off or haven't started it, it's on audible.com right now. It is not stale dated. All the themes that we talk about are in fact now coming into gear. And I drove across America in an electric car, and there was this big hoopla la, and everyone's going electric, and it's going to be an EV dream. Folks, this takes time, but it is happening. They're building these factories all over the world, including these battery gigafactories, but they still haven't started to procure their metal.
Yeah.
They don't need to buy copper cable yet. That's coming. Where you have this millions and millions of tons of copper is going to be consumed in the battery factories, in the electric car factories that they're building. And this is not a joke. Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, they're changing fundamentally at the chassis level how they make a car. This does not take months. This takes 4 or 5 or 6 years.
Right.
And this is all coming to a head. And these cars are going to start rolling off the assembly line in 2020, 21, and beyond. But more importantly for us as copper investors, there's a whole new area of demand where they're going to start buying millions of tons of copper, and that's going to be exacerbated by the people that take final energy usage from 19% to 50%, wind power, solar power, offshore wind power, nuclear power,
You can't get away.
natural gas.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
It all takes copper. It's all going to run off copper cabling, and we are there with our projects made in the USA to partner with people that want to develop in the future.
Great update. Thanks for coming by.